In Indian sport, the dropout rate is the highest between the age group of 18 and 22. Ultimately, most of us, you and I also during our childhood, we either wanted to be Amitabh Bachchan or Sachin Tendulkar or Sunil Gavaskar, depending on our age, no? And they would say, "क्या postman? तेरी माँ तो postmaster है और तू postman बनेगा?" He said, "You have 2.5 minutes." In 2 seconds, I told him I want to do sport. First person to score a double hundred in international cricket is not Sachin Tendulkar. I personally feel that when you step out and look at it with open eyes, it's changed quite a lot.
वेलकम टू येट अनदर एपिसोड ऑफ डॉक्टर एबी's Podium. थोड़ा सा गैप हो गया था बीच में टू गेट अनदर एपिसोड फॉर यू, बट बिकॉज ऑफ सम रीजंस वी टुक सम टाइम. एज आई ऑलवेज टेल यू, आप कमेंट्स करा करिए. कमेंट्स में अगर आप हमें सजेशंस देंगे, वी विल हैव वी विल बी एबल टू गेट टॉपिक्स एंड आई विल बी एबल टू गेट गेस्ट्स फॉर यू टू स्पीक ऑन दोज टॉपिक्स. बचपन से हमें कहा गया है कि करियर्स के बारे में अगर हम जब बात करते हैं, यू आस्क एनी स्मॉल किड, जनरली द फर्स्ट प्रेफरेंस ही और शी वुड गिव इज़ मैं डॉक्टर बनना चाहता हूँ, मैं इंजीनियर बनना चाहता हूँ, मैं एक्टर बनना चाहता हूँ, मैं पायलट बनना चाहता हूँ, और आई वांट टू गो इन द पुलिस, या मैं डिफेंस में जाना चाहता हूँ. बट वेरी फ्यू पीपल विल कम एंड से कि मैं स्पोर्ट्समैन बनना चाहता हूँ. इवन टुडे द सेम सिनारियो प्रिवेल्स. नाउ टू स्पीक ऑन दिस टॉपिक, आई हैव मिस्टर अमोल कराड़कर विथ मी. Amol sir is a journalist in the field of sports, carrying an experience of more than 2 decades. Currently, he is working with The Hindu as a deputy editor. He covers cricket and table tennis. But इनके साथ आज जब मैं डिस्कस करूँगा इस पर्टिकुलर टॉपिक के बारे में डिस्कस करूँगा, आई विल ऑल्सो स्पीक अबाउट नॉट जस्ट क्रिकेट और टेबल टेनिस बट अदर स्पोर्ट्स, प्रॉब्ली इवन लिटिल बिट अबाउट ओलंपिक्स एज वेल, एंड हाउ स्पोर्ट्स कैन एक्चुअली बी टेकन अप एज अ फुल टाइम करियर, और हाउ दिस आइडिया कैन बी फर्स्ट एक्सेप्टेड एंड डेवलप्ड अपॉन. So thank you, Amol, for accepting our invitation and coming on my episode today.
Pleasure, Aditya.
First point we always speak is, we have this saying in English, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So in this saying also, we first talk about work and play comes afterwards. So since ages, I think this has been hammered onto our heads that play is always going to be secondary, or it is something of more than more as a not as a career, but it is more of a hobby or a recreation form. So your comments on that?
See, I have a feeling, taking your intro forward and the question that you just asked.
Yeah.
A lot of times it so happens that in India, all that a kid says no. Ultimately, most of us, you and I also during our childhood, we either wanted to be Amitabh Bachchan or Sachin Tendulkar or Sunil Gavaskar, depending on our age, no? But we are not even, it's not even promoted at home, let alone be in front of others or when you step out, right? Over there is this typecast professions that we have to aspire for, right? So उस हिसाब से I feel now the times have changed, थोड़ा change हो रहा है. It's not as much, but I'm sure at least when you and I, we are raising our kids, we don't have that taboo, right? If someone is good in sport, we say, okay, chalo, give it a try. It is extremely expensive. We'll come to that later on. Okay, for a child to play any form of competitive sport,
correct,
is extremely expensive proposition in India. But the avenues are increasing. Sport has moved on beyond being only a hobby or a passion. Okay, I have been fortunate enough to convert my passion into my profession. Okay, and in the last 20 years, with every passing year, the avenues of being associated with sport as a profession have increased multifold. Okay, वो सबसे अच्छा factor है. In that sense, I feel if anyone wants to give a go, for it's no longer limited only to playing or coaching. Okay. And we'll talk about it in detail in due course, but this is the right time. If you want to be associated with sport all your life, you can enjoy your profession, you can make decent living also.
You mentioned about having a chance to convert your passion into profession. So I wanted to first ask you, आप इसमें enter कैसे हुए? Because before we started to shoot, you mentioned you're from Pune, and typically from this kind of a background, the same kind of a background which even I have come from. a conservative middle class background where, accepting this profession itself has been very difficult.
Yeah.
So how did you manage to do it?
You just took me back more than 3 decades, Aditya.
Yeah.
So it's like when I was growing up in a typical Maharashtrian household in old city, I used to play table tennis. Okay. And whenever any relative came, parents, uncles or aunts and all, क्या बनेगा आगे जाके? I used to say sportsman. And they would say, क्या postman? तेरी माँ तो postmaster है और तू postman बनेगा? Okay, these used to be the regular, the usual dialogues. Okay, at least once a month it used to happen. Okay, so I did play table tennis. Then I was also into coaching for a little while, but then the same reality struck. In Indian sport, the dropout rate is the highest between the age group of 18 and 22. Till then, you keep playing because it helps in your academics. It gives you extra marks. It makes you fitter. Then abhi pet ka sochna chahiye bhai. Okay. So 18 to 22, when it's supposed to be the most hard-working period for an athlete, the dropout rate is at the peak. Okay. I was also a part of the same clan. I did a little bit of basic coaching in Pune. Then, thankfully, the reality struck. I didn't have it in me to actually crack it at the highest level. I realized it, I admitted it to myself, and I didn't have time and money and all the support that was required to actually give that go. So, what next? Okay, my childhood dream was to be a chartered accountant because of the peer pressure and all that jazz. Okay, but then it struck me after passing my BCom, I got myself admitted for second year of BA, which was possible then.
Okay.
Okay. And then I realized I could play one more year of inter-university All India, no? That was also an add-on. Then I did the so-called mass communication because there was no background. Then it struck me that, okay, the best possible way to stay connected is to be a journalist.
Right.
Okay. And as an athlete, the first non-sporting clan, that is us, that usually drops into a table tennis hall or any local event hall, if at all there is anyone beyond athletes, parents and coaches, it's a journalist, one odd journalist, but so there is some idea. You are reading sports since you're, nowadays kids don't read, that's the problem.
Correct.
Okay, so that's how it started. Okay, and once I got enrolled into the coursework, I don't want to disillusion you or any of the students, but at least back then journalism did not require a qualification. Okay, and I realized on the first day when I read the preface of the first book, reference book, that I have wasted huge money of my parents. But I did that. Simultaneously in Pune only I started working for a couple of years. I dabbled into, as in, there was a time when I used to attend Anna Hazare alleging Suresh Dara Jain, if you remember, back in those days, a Maharashtra minister. That sort of an event. In the afternoons, I would go to court, collect all the daily news from there, attend one odd hearing. If anyone has watched the film Court, it's exactly the same. And then later on in the evening, after finishing all the filing of the important stuff, since sport was my go-to beat as such, I hadn't realized it then, I would write up the sports roundup for the paper.
Right.
And then when I was given a choice that now on, you have to make up your mind, what do you want to do, general or features, because I was also involved in a little bit of art and culture. So, general, feature or sport, you have to choose. I asked my then reporting manager, my then editor in Pune only, how long do I have to make up my mind? He said, you have 2.5 minutes. In 2 seconds, I told him I want to do sport.
Okay.
Then on, it's been sport all along. But I was fortunate. Back then, in mainstream media, the mainstream media fraternity in itself, or as an industry, was a flourishing industry. Now it's a shrinking industry because of the emergence of alternate media or parallel media, right?
Correct.
So now in mainstream media, for journalists profession, I was fortunate. What has sport given me? What has being a sport journalist given me? Forget about the basic livelihood. Look at it. I have been fortunate enough to watch a match at MCG, to watch a match at Lord's, to watch a World Cup match, to watch a World Cup final. In Dubai, I have been to like 6 cricket playing nations. All of it when I was paid for it. I didn't have to spend from my pocket. Now on, it's not going to be as easy for a new journalist or a promising journalist, because the avenues are actually shrinking. But that is what has happened with me. I have been fortunate to convert my passion into my profession. I sleep peacefully. My friends tell me, okay, you are the only one. You may not be extremely highly paid, but you are one of the most peaceful minds at heart. The office politics does not matter to you, because you are doing what you wanted to do.
Correct.
So in that respect, I am fortunate. Now it's no longer only journalism. Now there are 20 other beats, at least. Okay, 20 other possible professions wherein you can be involved in sport if you really are up for sport.
Okay. See, when we speak about back maybe 30 years behind, if we go behind in the memory lane, from then even till today, sports in India or locally, more than playing, it has been a subject of discussion.
Right.
In Marathi we say ना खेळण्यापेक्षा बोलण्याचा जास्त विषय येतो.
Yes.
So if you see, in spite of this being a topic of discussion everywhere, specifically when it comes to a cricket match, there's so much of discussion. It is discussed on every single chalk, every single lane, every single traffic signal everywhere. Still, if you see, sports as a career is not yet considered to be a very rewarding career. What could be the reasons? Probably if you go maybe 30 years behind, and if you talk about today, what could be the reasons?
See, it's not as pessimistic as it was during our formative years, Aditya. It's changing. It's now, like I said, now you can, thankfully, okay, with this whole Olympics coming to India movement having generated traction, I'll tell you, if not 2036, in 2040, India will host the Olympics. Because the whole world sporting ecosystem wants India to host the Olympics. Okay. And by then, if India has to pull off an Olympics, right from a volunteer to the CEO for the Olympics game, India will require at least 2 million or around 25 lakh sports professionals. Those who know sport and those who are working in sport in any capacity. Where are those 25 lakh professionals going to come from? Are we going to import them? That is why, if the last 10 years were nascent stages, okay, of the sports industry in India, the next decade is going to end up resulting in Indian sport industry being an adult. There is no time now.
Correct.
Okay, and that's where, if anyone wants to be involved in sport in any capacity, this is the time to be.
I want to speak about this point called sports industry. Now, way back in 2010-12, I was fortunate enough to deal with BCCI because I was the RM. With Yes Bank, we had an account,
Yes.
and I used to handle that account. I was very fortunate to have that account with me. Now, when we speak about sports as an industry, this is always a misconception that people have in mind, that it is only about becoming a sportsman or becoming a player. So, if you could just quickly, tell us what are the different components in brief that form this particular industry, maybe with reference to cricket, we can start with.
Okay, so basically, if you are an athlete, if you are a half good athlete, more in terms of giving gyan like what we are doing right now, you can be a coach if you are skillful. Okay, should know. Coaching certification nowadays, if not the Sports Authority of India, there are multiple private players, or even with the age that we live in, even international federations, online certification you can do wherever you are from. Okay, so you can get the qualification. If you are not a good athlete, if you are not a good coach, in terms of support staff structure that we refer to,
Correct.
You can be a physiotherapist, you can be a strength and conditioning expert, what we call loosely as a trainer, right? Strength and conditioning coach you can be. Then you can even be a masseur, okay? That's referred to as a recovery specialist. Then there is the psychological aspect. You can specialize in sports psychology. That's I'm sure if at all you can talk to someone like Mugdha Bawre or Gayatri Vartak. Gayatri lives in Pune. So they can give you more insight into it. going beyond. Now these are essentially the roles that we are looking at. You can even be an umpire, right? You can even be an umpire, an official. There are certification exams. I have a friend who has been a tennis official, a tennis umpire, and who has been doing it full time for the last 15 years. He travels almost 150 to 200 days a year. He lives in Pune.
Okay.
Okay, he makes a living out of being a tennis umpire because he did not enjoy coaching. He could have minted money through coaching. Okay, even in terms of local ecosystem in sport, there are disciplines and there are destinations, cities where coaches make more money than players. Okay, so that's a lucrative avenue also.
Right.
Now let's move on beyond the arena or beyond the hall. Okay, there, what you used to do, the branding part. Okay, the branding sponsorship part, wherein the administration aspect comes into play. Similarly, you can be involved in sports operations, you can be involved in event management, you can be involved in athlete management. That's like being an athlete's manager is not, it's in a lot of cases till very recently in Indian sport, it used to be the sidekicks, not a manager. Okay, or either a friend and family who would front up and the athlete would take care of his real commercial deals. But it's changing in the last couple of years at a very rapid pace. Okay, it's becoming professional. Athlete management is a different cup of tea. There are at the moment very large players who are looking after the cream of Indian sport. Okay, be it a Virat Kohli or a Manu Bhaker. Okay, but if sport has to flourish, there has to be Virat Kohlis and Manu Bhakers in and around your college, okay, in and around your locality. And that is where you can start off as an athlete manager over there. There is no harm in it if you want to start working. If we can actually trickle down to that level, no, that's where Indian sport will flourish. Coming back to the moot point, beyond athlete management, sports management also involves events, hospitality. Okay, if you are, there are times, just imagine for a cricket match, okay, most well-equipped stadia in India, on a big match day, they run a kitchen with 7,000 capacity operations.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so if you are a hospitality professional and if you are a sports lover, that is where you can specialize in.
Correct.
Right, you can specialize in logistics. It's not easy for a broadcast facility, the whole setup, to move from one destination to another. Similarly, for a team, those logistics have to be planned and executed. So the avenues are multifold, and for these are the very broad specifications I'm trying to give you. There would be like 4 to 5 threads for each of these branches, and in the next decade or so, everything will have yet another subset emerging out of it.
Correct.
So that is where I'm saying Indian sport, this is the right time if you want to look at it seriously or get into it seriously.
Correct. Correct. I think it's a question of the mindset. बहुत सालों से जो एक mindset बना हुआ है, maybe with respect to cricket or maybe other sports as well. To speak about cricket, as I understand, as a common man, cricket was never our game. It was actually brought into our nation by the, it's another gift by the Britishers when they came here. We accepted it. And we actually made it like our own game. But today cricket has become a very big game for India. How has cricket become so dominant in comparison to the other sports that are already there in India? Probably even hockey, for example, which is our national game. So how did cricket become so dominant over here?
See, cricket as of now, let's face it, it's the only mass sport in India as of now. India has started excelling in a variety of other disciplines on a consistent basis at the world level. But when it comes to being a mass sport, cricket replaced hockey more than 4 decades ago. Both the factors are at play. One, hockey was predominantly in that northern Indian belt. Okay, and beyond that, it is to be played in ghettos, right? You and I, during our childhood, we never saw or we never played hockey on the streets, no? When a child is born in India for the last 50 years at least, what is he or she given?
A plastic bat and a ball.
A plastic bat and a plastic ball.
Yes.
That's the culture we are a part of.
Correct.
And that's why cricket is genetically rooted. Whether you follow cricket, whether you like cricket or not, like you said, the famous Pula Deshpande quote, that cricket हा खेळण्यापेक्षा बोलण्याचा विषय जास्त आहे. Right?
Correct.
So that is where it is ingrained. And once Indian cricket, where did Indian cricket reach its turning point in terms of commercial aspect? It was in 1992. South Africa were returning to Indian folds. Okay. I run a Marathi sports podcast. I am an advisor over there, so I do some interviews over there. So Professor Ratnakar Shetty, who retired as the BCCI's Chief Administrative Officer, he had narrated that story to me in that podcast. That when South Africa returned to international fold after apartheid, South African Cricket Board Chief Ali Bakar, who was their former captain, okay, he rang up BCCI and he asked them, how much money would you want if the South African broadcaster is to broadcast this series? They said, what do you mean? We ask Doordarshan to telecast it and we pay them. I said, what are you saying? You don't earn money by telecasting matches, by televising matches. They said, we don't know. We have to beg to the national broadcaster, pay them so that they'll help us reach the masses because we are big. He said, I have been to India. I know how huge it is. When I come down, I'll explain the whole model to you. Okay. But he said, right now, will $200,000 be enough for BCCI for those 3 matches, 3 one-day internationals? Only one of them was a day-nighter.
Okay.
Okay. This was 91, end of 91, end of 91. Then BCCI got to know how to commercialize cricket. Okay. Till then, they were also struggling. It's like, these are well documented stories that 83 World Cup winning team, there was no money to reward them. So when they came back, Lata Mangeshkar agreed, since she was a cricket fanatic, she agreed for a free concert and the earnings from that show were distributed equally amongst the cricketers. Okay.
Correct.
So in the 90s, the BCCI realized the commercial potential of the game. They stopped entertaining the government. They politely said, thank you very much to the national broadcaster, to the sports ministry. They said, we will do it our way. Okay. That's when with every passing year, and then the Tendulkar phenomenon was also around.
Right.
So in that generation, who was the biggest name in Indian cricket or Indian, that whole culmination of a new India emerging. Okay, the economic reforms have just taken place. That's when BCCI realized, okay, now you can commercially exploit the potential of the game, and you had a Tendulkar emerging. It became like not just icing on the cake or Sone Pe Suhaga, it became one step ahead of that. No, all 3 factors culminated.
Right.
And that's where BCCI realized that you don't have to rely on the governments, which other federations are still not willing to do. Other federations don't have a marketing or branding wing. How will you raise money then?
Correct.
Right? Correct. That is another avenue for today's youngsters. Convince the federations. I'll get in revenue for you. It's not that difficult now, right?
Right.
So that's how cricket's emergence started as an economic superpower, and then on, with every 5-year cycle, you are realizing that cricket, in terms of, even the broadcasters have contributed, because what else can sell across age groups? IPL took it to another level. IPL ensured that cricket became a household activity and a prime time activity, right?
Correct.
So cricket became a substitute for daily soaps. So daily soaps had to be restricted to afternoons during that holiday season, right? So when you don't have competition, and how will you create competition? Because you look at it, as in, you ask 50 random persons, 40 of them would have heard of Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma. Sadly, 5 to 7 would have heard of Manu Bhakar, even now in 2025.
Correct.
Okay. If that is our responsibility to ensure that Manu Bhakar also reaches 40 people, then we should participate and contribute actively towards it.
Right. I think one more reason why cricket became dominant during the 90s was the rise of the television. Because television earlier was maybe black and white. In a lane of say maybe 10 homes, one of them used to have a television, and sitting in that one home and then watching was a difficult task.
Exactly.
Probably only one weekend people used to do it. But by televisions coming into India during the 1990s, late 1990s, I think cricket as a sport or anything, cable TV coming into our households, these things started coming in.
Right.
I want to ask you the next question over here, as you spoke about Tendulkar emerging here. Now, many cricketers who came up during that time, not just Tendulkar, but many cricketers who came up that time, they too realized the potential of commercials, participating in these brand commercials or becoming a part of ad campaigns, product promotional campaigns. And what is this entire economical model which they have been able to understand, and unfortunately or sadly the other sports fraternity sports members have not been able to understand?
Okay, so they were made aware of it. Tendulkar's first manager was Mark Mascarenhas, who was an Indian American, okay, who touched base with Ravi Shastri. Okay, so he was the one who actually has, he is the founding father of Indian sports athlete management. Okay, he had his interests in everything. He also used to have broadcast rights. He used to hold in-stadia advertising rights also, and he used to manage Tendulkar. Okay, he passed away in a road accident suddenly. So he and Ravi Shastri founded a firm that ensured that Tendulkar also got to enhance his market value. One, to realize what the market value is, right?
Correct.
Now cut to today. Okay, what we spoke about, Tendulkar in every lane. That happens with public media. That happens with alternate media, social media. We see Instagram having reached at the bottommost tier of the populi, and that's where even a local athlete does get endorsements. Okay. See, the scale is not as much.
Correct.
That is up to the athlete to enhance through his or her performance. But you do get endorsements. Back then, because of the television aspect that you touched, okay, back then there was hardly any internet. There was no internet in India except unless you were Shammi Kapoor, right? So, till mid-90s, internet was very difficult to access in India. So, television and the same ads used to be played on film theatre screens, right?
Correct.
So, that was the only mass media medium, newspaper advertisements. You and I, we grew up cutting newspaper advertisements, or I am not sure about you. I used to tear the Sports Star.
Same here, yeah.
My son does that now. Okay. So, so the whole point is, the athletes back then realized, the cricketers back then realized that yes, the shelf life of an athlete is very limited, but when you are at the peak of your performance, if you manage your time, energy properly, you can create a corpus for your lifetime and possibly beyond. If you are excelling on the field, okay, if you are working hard for 300 days, you take 40 days break, and in a year, if you do commercial endorsements for 20 days, 20 remaining days, now you are sorted for your lifetime.
Correct.
That is what everyone aspires for, no? Right?
True.
So that started with the cricketers. For almost 2 decades, it remained only with cricketers. Even though you had a Leander Pace or a Karnam Malleshwari, they never got endorsements. That's the problem with Indian branding industry and athletes not being able to sell themselves properly. Correct. It's give and take, right?
Correct.
But in the last decade, you see a Sindhu also is seen on camera.
Correct.
A Smriti Mandhana is also seen on camera.
Correct.
Abhinav Bindra gets an odd ad. Sunil Chhetri does get an ad. So it started already spreading around among various disciplines.
Right. See, back in you mentioned about people like Ravi Shastri or the managers who actually brought the cricketers up. There are two aspects. Managers, I would like to ask you about managers and the board. The other sports, they also have these kind of boards who are managing them, like the Hockey Federation, for example. Why do you think that they did not realize that this is a power that they also can use? in this?
See, one of as in, the boon and bane of Indian sports ecosystem, the competitive sports ecosystem, is over reliance on government. See, and government gives a fixed grant, X grant, to every federation. Okay, doesn't matter. So there was a time that what does a sports federation have to do? It's a huge task to ensure that those 4 or 5 national rankings or trial tournaments are happening. National championship is being held. Based on that, you select the teams. Who ensures that the team gets exposure? Federation doesn't raise money. Ministry pays. Your and mine tax money goes in it, right? So if you want federation to flourish the sport, either incentivize a federation for raising their money or stop funding. Anyway, India is not a sporting country, we are discussing, no, for the last half hour. Then why do you need to waste money that is required for infrastructure or basic needs even now? Why are you giving whatever that 500 to 1500 crore that you allocate for sport on a fixed basis in the budget? Stop that. If India is a one country sport, or now we can discuss it, is it a 4 country sport? Why do you have to fund 35 federations then? Take care of those 4 disciplines properly. Now this is the chicken and egg scenario, right? Should we fund only the ones that are doing well, or should we ensure that everyone gets opportunity?
Correct.
But what is happening with that? That's the basic Indian accountability issue we are dealing with,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So in fact, I see in Pune we have the stadium in Balewadi. It was a state-of-the-art facility when it was inaugurated. Today, unfortunately, the condition of the stadium is it is being used for marriages, it is being used for other events. Probably the only event that I consistently see happening over there is either the cyclothons or marathons, which consistently happen over there. But for so many, I think the last event that my students witnessed was the Kabaddi tournament over there. So yes, public facilities which have been erected by the government, those are not really doing well for these kind of sports.
Yeah, so one is to create, the whole of India right now is obsessed with creating infrastructure, not managing it. If you have sports professionals coming in, they are the ones who can give ideas about managing infrastructure, sustaining it, if not growing it, right? Because otherwise, all these infrastructure facilities, there is a cricket stadium coming up in India at every nook and corner, right? Which is a huge cricket stadium. To maintain it is the problem. BCCI gives a lot of funding. Okay, BCCI gives 50% or 100 crore of the actual project cost. They don't rely on government, state associations. Okay, but how will you manage it? It becomes a white elephant, no? So to ensure, most associations, most cricket state associations have started their own residential academies,
Right.
in this stadia. They are trying to utilize it. Okay, but then the other aspect is the commercial aspect, to ensure that it's monetized also. Cricket association does not need to monetize it, they can still maintain it properly, although it is not maintained, we all know that. When we go for an odd cricket match, when we are fortunate enough to enter a stadium, we see the pathetic state of affairs with stadium facilities, right? That's the flip side of it. If you want it to happen, okay, just let the professionals take over, give them the freedom to manage the facility, to sustain the facility, to monetize the facility. Who has stopped you?
Correct. In fact, an interesting thing is, big stadiums may not be maintained well, but there are small turfs which have opened in different lanes. Those are really maintained well.
Right.
And people are playing there, people are utilizing those also. There are many training academies also which are opened up in those turfs, and they are taking care of these things. We spoke about cricket. You also cover table tennis. What is the situation in that sport currently?
In the last decade, it's become much better. It's like the Sachin Tendulkar of Indian table tennis, who retired very recently as we are recording, Sharad Kamal. He is one batch junior to me. Okay. So 20 years ago, one of the pet peeves is when it comes to competitive table tennis, no? That, see, back in those days, 20 years ago, 1 to 5, the top 5 male and female athletes used to be well taken care of. The pyramid did not step down. Okay. Now, from that 1 to 5, it's come down to 1 to 16. Okay, but if you want to grow as a sport, if those 17 to 32, 33 to 64 who are almost there, who are almost as good but can't break in, if they struggle for their livelihood, then the whole ecosystem doesn't grow. Table tennis slowly it's improving. There is a private player in table tennis,
Okay.
who are a huge corporate. They have interests in growing sport, so they have started the IPL like franchise-based league for table tennis
Okay.
since 2017.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Now it's there. They had to take a break because of COVID. Now it's settling down. The problem with sport like table tennis is if you have an international league, you can't get the top athletes of the world to participate in it, because then your Indians will not be able to compete with them, right? And you don't know the top 5 Indian world table tennis players, right? So for you it doesn't matter who is coming, right? So the matches have to be competitive. There has to be an international appeal, okay, so that the brands will possibly get attracted.
I'll just stop you for one moment over here. See, we spoke about cricket coming as a sport in the gully, so gully cricket, what we used to call it. Table tennis also is one of that kind of a sport which is easily available in the childhood.
Yeah.
You need not have a big expensive table. You can have a racket, you can have the balls, and you can start playing it. So that sport is also available in the minds of the kids right from childhood.
Yes.
Can that not be such a kind of an ecosystem where we can start training them from that childhood, that age?
It hasn't been utilized that much because, like you said, table tennis has been treated as a party sport. Okay, right. That's the sad part of
Like a pool table.
Yeah. Right. But competitive table tennis is different. But as you said, if you get, just imagine, in a country like India, that's the other problem, and that's where the current students can actually come in with their ideas and their set of skills to make it happen. In a country like Germany, okay, there are more than 3 million registered table tennis players.
Okay.
In India, there is only one registration. That is the Table Tennis Federation of India registration. There are not more than 25,000 registered table tennis players. And there would be 25 crore who would have played table tennis at some level.
Yes. Yes.
But you haven't been able to attract them. So that's your real target. But and the top of the pinnacle, no, they don't feel the need to reach out to them. So this whole disconnect between the widest of bases and the top of the pinnacle, competitive, there will only be a select few at the top, right, who are excelling at the world level. But if you don't make the bottommost tier feel involved and be a part of the system, no, then it goes nowhere. Then it remains a restricted and select policy, and we'll keep discussing what is it that goes wrong with Indian sport. This has been the tale for the last 100 years. Hopefully, the next generation brings in a change.
So if they have to bring in a change, could there be smaller leagues like IPL
Yes.
which can be introduced, and
Yes.
what could be done in that case?
So see, cricket has adopted that model.
Yeah.
Okay, now every
There's
state
a celebrity cricket league. There are many other things.
and
that
every
happen.
state has its own cricket league.
Correct.
Who has stopped every badminton state association or every table tennis state association or every chess does have a league now. Now
Yes.
the problem is there is a league at the international level or an all India level. You need a mohalla league, you know. You and I, with our childhood friends, during our summer holidays, we used to play the building league, no? We used to maintain notebooks,
Correct,
no?
correct.
Carom and chess and whatnot,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Correct.
So now you have technology, convert an app. Cricket has a great app, crickheroes.com. If you have got there, no? What we used to play in our building, no? You can maintain that database.
Okay.
If you as an athlete, if you want to register, pay a little bit and keep a track of your record, you can do that. Who has stopped other sports from doing it? There are avenues, okay. There are people with ideas, but there are no professionals to convert those ideas into reality. That is the need of the hour, and that's why sport is going to be a flourishing industry.
Right. We spoke about chess, we spoke about table tennis, cricket, but there are other sports also like rifle shooting. We have a beautiful shooting academy in Pune, and I also was fortunate to have handled that account as well.
Okay.
When that opened here for maybe 2 or 3
Gagan's
months.
Academy.
Yeah, the Gagan Narang Academy in Balewadi. It's one of the finest. And how do these athletes then become, a part of the mainstream? Because they are, in their cases, rifle shooters or pistol shooters specifically, they are a one-man show, they are, participating on their own. There is no team as such where they are playing in it. How do they perform this?
I am so glad you touched this point. For an individual athlete also, if you don't have a team, you can't go anywhere. And that's where the supporting structure that we spoke about in brief, that comes into play even for an individual athlete. You see a Djokovic or a Federer after winning the Wimbledon thanking his box, wherein there are some 9 or 10 names and faces who are equally, if not more, overjoyed than the athlete himself. Same is the case at every level. Okay, and that's the avenue we are looking at creating. That's how it should actually grow, right? So for other sports, sadly in India, they are heavily reliant on government. For disciplines like shooting, you have to rely on government because otherwise you can't train. You
The
need
equipment
cartridges.
itself is very costly.
It's not just about costly. In terms of security, no.
Yeah.
Without government intervention and help, you can't get those cartridges.
Correct.
You can't procure. Anjali Bhagwat told me a story when I chatted with her in Marathi on the same podcast we referred to. She said for her first Olympics, for her first World Cup, just prior to the Olympics, she reached and then she realized, okay, the bullets that are being used are different. I don't have them.
Okay.
Okay. So from there to actually Gagan Narangs and now Abhinav Bindra. Abhinav Bindra is doing stuff beyond shooting.
Right.
Okay. But these guys are actually working hard. Anjali has 3 academies in Pune.
Okay.
So they are working hard, but the real challenge is to have, as in Thane, where I live now, there is an archery academy dedicated to archery, superb facility. Okay, what is it that they are going to do? You have created the infrastructure, have basic coaching, attract kids in and around the locality. Okay, and then parents like you and me come into play. No, yeah, who will go for archery? Okay, only those economically backward kids from Chhattisgarh are involved in archery. No, we'll play football. Why? If your kid loves you buy that in a fair, no. And if your son or daughter enjoys it, let him or her have a feel. No, who has stopped them? If there are avenues, utilize them. One is for the system to ensure that it's thrown open to the public, or at least not thrown open, it's made accessible to the public. Okay, and 2 is for you and I to utilize it.
I think in these kind of sports, archery or maybe anything related to Olympics, people look at it with the aspect of getting into the government jobs. Could be railways, could be this thing. I don't know how possible it will be for the private sector in India to accept this, or the education sector in India to accept this. Probably in the US, if you play basketball, you do have those grades combined and you get into a good university there. In India, do you think it will help if education institutes or the private sector companies, they assign this kind of a quota probably, or some kind of a system where they can attract this talent as well?
There is a famous Gopichan interview that he touched upon, no, don't play sport. What he meant was don't give up academics. Right? That is what you and I have been, as in we have grown up listening to the same. खेलता है वो ठीक है, but पेट के लिए क्या करेगा? Right? So that's the same point, and we are still at the same juncture in that aspect. अभी ऐसा है कि whether we need the academic, see, I got grace marks for getting admission in the 11th, right, or for my graduation, because I was doing exceedingly well at that level back then, right? Everyone gets marks. What do you do with those marks? right? Okay, now there are these sports management institutes that are dedicated for the whole culture to be uh, incorporated. How many of them actually ensure towards getting practical experience for the kids? How many of the sports management students actually get to know at least half of these points? See, Indian education system, we can talk about it in detail off camera. I would like to know more about you, from you. Okay, but the point is, it's time that we start looking at stuff beyond admissions, beyond grace marks. Grace marks will not help you. Grace marks will mean, there's a great example in Indian sport right now. She is extremely good in academics. Table tennis player. She played Olympics. She got admitted for masters in the US. She has quit table tennis at the age of 24.
Okay.
Not because there is no future and all. She wants to pursue academics. Okay. But table tennis does not have NCAA scholarship. But an Olympian does get all the SOPs. So she was smart enough also in that. Okay. So if you have excelled in sport, you get all the support wherever you go. When it comes to recruitment in India in itself is a huge issue. Sports recruitment has been restricted to Services Sports Control Board and railways. That's it. Even oil companies no longer, or they think thousands of times before hiring. Right. So that's where if the top tier, if we can have that basic structure in place at local level, if there are 100 local sports stars, okay, I'm sure one of the local big companies will also want to have a team in at least one of the sport leagues and recruit, if not on a full-time basis, at least as a retainer, as a contracted employee, half of those guys. That is what we are striving for. Right now it's only, till 10 years ago, now even banks have stopped recruitments. So what will happen by playing sport becomes a huge issue.
Correct.
Either you become a frustrated sports person or you become a coach who thinks more for running his household, okay, than making or creating players. Nobody is right or wrong. That's the sad reality of it. But that's where the professionals can help bring in the change.
Now, at least couple of years ago, by banks recruiting sportsmen or railways or oil companies, like you mentioned, at least there was some avenue. Today, those avenues are also becoming restricted.
Yes.
This is for sportsmen. I'm now coming to another segment, which is female sportsmen. That's again, one more area where females now have been coming up and participating in cricket. They have been participating in other sports as well, but they never really came into limelight. How do we as media, or how do we as a society change this mindset and try to attract more female players into any kind of sport? It could be cricket, it could be any other game for that matter.
You look at the irony of it, okay. In terms of achievements, beyond cricket, cricket is the only top sport in India wherein men have outdone women at the international level, right? Although not too many would be aware, the Women's Cricket World Cup started before the men's. In 1973, the first Women's World Cup was played. Okay. Men's Cricket World Cup started in 1975. So they have been the pioneers. The first person to score a double hundred in international cricket is not Sachin Tendulkar. In international one-day cricket, it's not Sachin Tendulkar, it's Belinda Clark, an Australian who scored it in Mumbai, MIG club, in a World Cup match. Okay. Very few people know about it. But look at the top achieving sports persons in India. If you have top 10 achievers, individual achievers in Indian sport, there would be more women in it than men.
That's nice, yeah.
You'll have a Manu Bhakar who has achieved, which no Indian athlete has ever been able to achieve, 2 medals in an Olympics. You have a Sindhu, you have a Saina, right? But still we keep discussing this. I personally feel that when you step out and look at it with open eyes, it's changed quite a lot. Even Haryana, which is the nursery state, for all the female related social issues,
Correct.
and for producing female sports persons also.
Yes.
Okay, if Haryana also is witnessing women outdoing men in sports, I don't see the industry or the top athlete ecosystem being tabooed any longer. Okay, they get their due, but as a society, we are still not ready to open up. Okay, and it actually cuts across region, background, your economic status, because all of us, we are just ingrained that way. It's time for us to start telling ourselves that no, it's changed. If you see a newspaper, okay, nowadays news channels don't run anything besides beyond politics. So let's not even get there. If you read newspapers, I don't think female athletes' achievements are not given their due. I work for the Hindu. It doesn't matter who has won. What we do is an administrative muddle. Okay. For instance, the wrestling row. Okay. If Pradnananda or his sister Vaishali, if they became GM the same day, we would give preference. We always give preference to a sporting achievement, right? So we will carry the administrative model very short, and we'll play up the sporting achievement. If everyone looks at it this way, things will change.
Correct.
So I have a feeling, I don't think there is any societal bias against giving female athletes their due any longer. Yes, females need a lot support, security. For instance, at 6 o'clock, if an academy has to be opened for a girl, okay, and if there are only 3 male security guards and 2 male coaches, how many parents would be comfortable sending the girl child in? Over there should be at least 1 security guard, so that that 1 girl child results in 3 top girl childs who need special training early in the morning before her school, right?
Correct.
All those issues do come in, okay, but that's a separate topic for discussion, I feel.
Right.
At the top level, there is no issue.
Just to bring back one more discussion on the dominance of cricket. Things like Dream 11, which have come in. Though earlier we used to say betting is not something which should be done. Dream 11 probably is one legalized way of doing this. What is your comment on that?
There is a High Court order which says it's a game of skill. It is not betting. Okay.
Okay.
So there ends the debate. The line is murky. It's like stock market. We all know, but you are taking a punt, and you are predicting future. All of us are. So that way, I personally am not so comfortable with the so-called fantasy sport sprouting in the manner in which they are in Indian sport. But that's how we are as an Indian society, right? The sports bill that was drafted or that was being discussed widely just after the 2013 IPL corruption scandal, there was a mention of it that sports betting should be legalized. Okay, which is allowed overseas, right? So here it's, and it's a typical human nature, no? If you ban something, you want to do it more. You are going to give it a try.
True.
So this is the typical Indian way or typical Indian jugaad of making it happen in a legalized way. But as long as the authorities, there are a few states wherein high courts have banned Dream 11. So what do you have to do is, for instance, if you go to Northeast in a couple of those states, no, you can't use a Wi-Fi. If you use your Maharashtra number and Maharashtra data and you register with your Maharashtra address, you can create a team. But you can't create a team using Wi-Fi. जुगाड़, there is always a जुगाड़ यार. इंडिया में रहते हैं हम लोग.
नहीं, इसका ये रीज़न है ना कि जो जिनको क्रिकेट के बारे में पता भी नहीं है, they are just there to try their luck and make some money. Though they may not have the skill, contrary to what the court order is saying, They're just there to try their luck and to make some money.
Yes. I asked the same question to the International Cricket Council's security unit head. That do you guys keep a check on which player is being actually portrayed more and more on fantasy leagues? Is there a connection? They said it's not under our purview.
Correct.
We have nothing to do with it. These are private players. No official board is involved. And now the funny part is cricketers themselves are investing in some of these fantasy league companies.
But right. Coming towards now the towards the end of the entire discussion, we have discussed about sports as a career, or how to change this mindset. I think changing the mindset would be right from the beginning, when kids are probably 3 years old or 4 years old, when this can be induced into their minds. What do you feel are those 2-3 different steps that can be taken to introduce this into the minds of the parents to begin with?
Okay, one is please let the child explore what he or she wants to do. Don't impose your will on him. Okay, मैं ये नहीं कर पाया, मैं वो नहीं कर पाया, मैं अच्छा ड्राइंग करता था तो मैं मेरे बेटे या बेटी को ड्राइंग क्लास ही डालूंगा या डालूंगी. नहीं. If the child loves drawing, he or she will keep drawing, right? Similarly, give the kids an exposure. See, in an ideal world, at least in Indian urban setup that we are primarily referring to, you ideally should have exposure to one art form, okay, and one sport at least, right? So, and that sport has to be beyond gaming. Let's face it. Okay. So one outdoor activity, or at least just step out of your home. Okay. Play indoor sport. That's fine. My simple point is, from the age of 4 to 14, don't decide this is the career. Don't discuss career options when it comes to sport with your child. Career is way too far.
Correct.
Okay. Zahir Khan started bowling with a leather ball at 18. In 4 years, he played for India. There are such examples also. You don't have to be a Tendulkar all the time, right? So, my point is, let every sport be explored, and sport will teach you life skills the most. Okay, you and I, we have played some competitive sport at some competitive level. Okay, you get to learn diplomacy, you get to learn to observe the world with open eyes, you get to learn to analyze, right? You get to learn with to cope with different personalities. Okay, you learn compartmentalization. I may not like Aditya as a person, but he is a great athlete, so I admire him for it. Okay, all these things you realize way down the line. What does sport teach you? So sport teaches you, most importantly, to accept the failure. That
Correct.
Only sport can teach you. In exams you get lesser marks, lesser grades, you heckle yourself. But if you are a sports person, you will say, okay, chalo, ek exam kharab hua, next time I'll give it a try. Only sport can make it happen. Because a sports person like you and I, in our every walk of life, we fail more than we succeed, and there is no better avenue than sport to teach you that. So be involved in sport in some way. If you start playing something early on in the childhood, and later on just be involved in sport, in and around sport. If you don't like playing sport, just try and walk through a sporting arena. Okay, just do that. Be involved. You will actually be a much happier person all your life, I feel.
Correct. No, I think it was a great discussion. 2-3 key takeaways that I will take from this. One is, when we speak about career in sports, sometime back we spoke about the different avenues or allied areas which are there with respect to any sport. So that is one part. Second most important is what sports teaches you in terms of team building, team spirit, accepting failures, learning through them, developing an overall personality for that matter. And third and the most important thing, people like me who got into the career of sales, I still use that. Sports, cricket is a matter of discussion.
Yes.
So to बोलने का विषय है, I have always taken in mind, and though I have not been really that keen a follower of cricket, But थोड़ा बहुत यहाँ वहाँ से लेके I was fortunate enough, like I told you, to handle the account of the largest cricket board, which was BCCI. So, lot of good points of discussion that have happened in this episode. Do watch this episode. Do like this episode. Share करिए इसको. Subscribe करिए to our channel. And please comment and let us know more topics of interest to you. It will be my effort to get guests to speak to you on those topics. And thank you so much for watching this. Stay connected. Thank you. Thank you, Amol. Thank you.